polyamory, a new relationship dynamic, or a toxic dumpster fire of a relationship? Stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Just a Tip with Dr. Vic / Sex Nerd Podcast. My name is Dr. Victoria Hartman, and this is an unexpected episode, and it might be more of a rant episode than anything else, simply because the kind of mental gymnastics that the sexosphere comes up with in order to justify the worst kind of relationship dynamics continues to floor me. So if this is something that you live your life by, or you're poly or what have you, then don't watch this episode, because probably not going to align with the way you feel about your relationships. So with that, let's dive in. Okay, so this was actually brought to my attention by Dr. Kate Lister, who's a colleague of mine, and she has a really popular show called Betwixt the Sheets on History Hit. And she writes opinion pieces about what's going on in sexology and in the sexosphere online mostly. And I don't follow this stuff really much anymore. My interests are, as you know, more in line with paraphilic behavior. I have primarily focused my studies on necrophilia. I'm just finishing up a book called The Sexual Art of Serial Killers that is with the formatter / typesetter right now, and is due to go to publishing here in the next couple of weeks. My interests diverged from mainstream sexology because I wasn't able to relate to it really anymore. And so, coupled with my area of expertise anyway, wasn't a big loss when I decided to no longer focus on what's going on in the mainstream. And I went more into the criminal justice side. And so, but this, I saw this on Instagram that she had written an opinion piece in the, I think in iNews. I could be wrong. I'll post the link in the description. But she starts talking about Tolyamory. Okay. Well, let me describe what Tolyamory apparently is. Tolyamory is essentially a don't ask, don't tell arrangement. Now, on its face, don't ask, don't tell isn't really an arrangement at all, because there's no negotiation, there's no disclosure. It's the opposite of an agreement. Now, as Dr. Kate Lister writes, according to a flurry of recent articles on the topic, polyamory refers to an age-old situation where one partner tactily consents. Don't use that word. Just don't use the word consent here. To the other having a sexual relationship or a flirtation with someone else. It's an agreement, but it's unspoken. No, it's not. It's not an agreement. If it's unspoken, it's not an agreement. Period. It does not fall under the definition of agreement. As she rightly states, and also Tracy Shorn, who is the author of Leave a Cheater, Gay to Life, she says, they both said there's another word for this. It's called cheating. Cheating. That's what that is. You're not a polyamorous. You're a big, fat, cheating liar. This kind of relationship is only kept alive through dishonesty, deceit, and disrespect, as Dr. Kate Lister states. Now, genuine polyamory, and some of you may know that I have probably a contrarian view on polyamory. As someone who practiced polyamory and various forms of polyamory and non-monogamy for 25 years and has not been a polyamorous for the last 5, because it was so, that's a whole nother episode. Anyway, that being said, the common narrative about polyamory is that these are open and negotiated, and there's these terms floating around: consensual non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy, consensual polyamory, etc. Let me correct the record on that, which I've done many times on this channel before. And I will refer back to Dr. Wednesday Martin, who, once I had listened to her, I was convinced that, because I was one of those rabid ethical polyamorists, until I realized that I was elevating myself by claiming that I was ethical. And that was a value-laden word that really doesn't apply to any kind of practices because they are subjective. So Dr. Wednesday Martin educated me quite eloquently on new terminology that now has been around for a few years: disclosed and non-disclosed non-monogamy. Now, it takes the emotion or the value judgment that's placed on with, ethical and consensual, because you don't know. That's when someone claims they are that, or they're practicing that. They think they are. So, but disclosed and non-disclosed non-monogamy are neutral terms that allow us to look at these kinds of relationships objectively. So if we look at disclosed and non-disclosed non-monogamy, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to get away from this Tolyamory silliness for a second. If you are in a non-disclosed non-monogamous relationship, in other words, you are in a relationship with you're having a dating relationship. I don't care what kind of dating relationship that is: a casual dating relationship, a committed dating relationship, an engagement, a marriage, a life partner, a nesting partner. Anything outside of that dyad is not disclosed is rooted in deceit and deception, and non-disclosure, obviously, because it's not disclosed. And we can then look at the consequences of that, which generally are very negative. And people can't claim, and a lot of other people have said this, people can't claim that that's a functional relationship. If there's a non-disclosed extra dyadic relationship, in other words, outside of that dyad, again, don't care if it's casual or serious. If there is a non-disclosed, intimate, sexual or romantic relationship that other person doesn't know about, that is not polyamory. That is cheating. That is being deceitful and deceptive. Now, as these two women rightly point out, polyamory is not progressive. It's regressive. People don't consent to these kind of relationships because, they're so happy to do so. Let's, you know me, I'm the queen of comparisons, okay? Let's compare a disclosed non-monogamous relationship and what that looks like, and I'll use extreme examples, and a non-disclosed non-monogamous relationship. Okay, my first example is going to be a disclosed non-monogamous relationship. I'm not even going to call it polyamory. I just don't like that word. The community, the people that claim they are part of the community, like to often wrap themselves up in these, value-laden words in order to elevate themselves up above others while claiming that they're these, really progressive people, which my experience has been exactly the opposite in many cases. Not all, but in many. So I'm going to stick with the terminology that I've been using, which is extradyadic sexual relationships, disclosed ones and non-disclosed ones. So let's look at what does a disclosed non-monogamous relationship look like? Well, first of all, it is not about tolerating or having to put up with. It is rooted in compatibility. So I'll use an extreme example. And a lot of people, I just did an episode on sex workers. and women clients, female clients. A heterosexual couple discovers throughout the course of dating that they both enjoy visiting female sex workers. Let's say this is a heterosexual couple. Okay. They've been dating for a little bit and they discover that they both enjoy visiting sex workers. That's a compatibility. That's already present in their relationship. They bring that compatibility to the relationship. The only thing that's left to decide between those two is, do we only engage in sex workers together? And I'm talking about legal brothels here in Nevada. Or is there room for us to occasionally engage with sex workers on our own and together? And are we going to disclose that to each other? Which in this case would be a yes, because it's disclosed. It's a disclosed non-monogamous relationship that has agreed to have extradyadic sexual encounters with sex workers, both the man and the woman, together and separately. Okay. That is a functional, open, and healthy relationship because all of that is disclosed. They have talked about it. They are accepting of it with each other. Not, okay, I'll put up with it. No, they bring that compatibility to the table. The alternative, of course, is you have a married couple. Let's just use a married couple as an example, a heterosexual married couple. And I'm using heterosexual couples, but I think this could also apply to LGBT couples. The husband goes off and travels a lot. The wife stays home. Let's say the kids are grown and gone, and she has a job that's, in town, and he has a job where he travels a lot. And, she has found evidence here and there that he's had, an out-of-town relationship throughout the 20 years that they've been married, and that he's occasionally had one-night stands and so forth and so on. And she doesn't want to lose the relationship. They're so financially tied. They have children together. She makes the decision, well, I guess as long as it's not, as long as he comes home to me and it's, none of these women that he's involved with are disruptive to our financial situation or, get in the way of our family life, then I guess. You see the difference? You see how one is actually enthusiastic about sharing a non-monogamous dynamic and the other one is resigning themselves to a non-monogamous relationship? So that just on the surface is already a problem. Now you have that person in that relationship with the husband that goes off, and it could be a wife or a husband or, a partner. Let's just use partner. It could be it doesn't matter who. Now they have to wonder. I wonder, he didn't call me tonight before he went to bed. I wonder who he's with. Well, it doesn't matter because as long as he comes home to me. The abhorrent part about this is not the cheating. It is not the fact that there's an extradyadic sexual relationship. It's the disrespect and the secrecy that's now that you can't even define that as a relationship, really, because there are things you're hiding from each other. Now, there's a difference between secrets and privacy. Those are two different things. Okay. If your partner and you both enjoy masturbating, but sometimes you don't share that with each other, masturbation oftentimes is a solo endeavor, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And no, nobody's cheating when they're watching porn in order to masturbate. Pornography is often used for that purpose. That is simply a solo enjoyable experience. It's good for your mental health, it's good for your sexual health, etc. That's just having some privacy for yourself. Your fantasies are okay to have to yourself. You don't have to share those if you don't want to. That's not keeping a secret. It's just a fantasy. Okay. Now, if it's something you want to share, then hopefully you're in the kind of relationship you go, I have this fantasy about this, this, and this. And gosh, I would really like to experience it. Then you get back into a negotiation. What does that involve? Is that a non-monogamous situation? Is that something that you can negotiate with each other, etc.? Now, as Dr. Kate Lister says, the very fact that this whole Tolyamory thing is almost entirely focused on the experience of the person having to put up with and shut up shows that this is not a new and exciting lifestyle choice, but an arrangement which can involve a worrying dynamic. One that only works when someone is willing to repress their own needs and wants to enable their partner to cheat on them with impunity. Either that, or they really don't care about the sanctity of the relationship anymore, in which case, surely everyone is best off out of it. If you have reached a point where you either are completely disinterested that your partner is cheating, and I am covering all relationship dynamics, casual dating, serious relationship, engagement, marriage, living arrangement, whatever. If you've gotten to a point where either you are putting aside your own needs for basic trust and respect, or you just don't care. I've heard that too. Well, I don't care. Then why are you there? Why are you there? What is the point of being in a relationship with someone who disrespects you to such a degree that you don't care what they do? Then why are you there? It's better just call it what it is. You don't care. You don't care, and whatever they do, whatever. I don't know that I could be in a relationship like that. Is that the kind of relationship you want, where you don't care, they don't care? What's the point of being in that relationship? There's just no point. And if you feel coerced into having to deal with that because you're financially dependent on that person, or you have whatever the reason is, you're not there. That's not consent. That's coercion. No matter how soft it is, that's coercion. Polyamory is not good for, don't justify it and say, oh, it's better for the kids if we don't break up, or it's better, our home, I don't want to lose our home, I'm just going to look the other way. No, because it's there and it's slowly tearing you apart. And if you really don't care, then end the relationship and say goodbye, or call it what it is. I'm tolerating being treated like crap. Tracy Shorn, I think, says it better than I could. When I first discovered this term, she discovered it at the same time, actually. We chatted for a brief moment. She states, at least it's new to me. Dan Savage introduced the term on his Savage Lovecast. Oh, he's just so, original with these terms and how he defines these relationships. It's a portmanteau of polyamory and tolerance, which is a bit of Orwellian dipshittery, as polyamorous relationships are supposed to be open and consensual, and cheating is not. But hey, you were all in on it, and you're cool, right? There's a New York Post, as she puts it, the arbiter of tasty clickbait. What is Tolyamory? How couples keep cheating on the down low? Yum, yum. I pronounced this polyamorous shit sandwich delicious. Or tolerably okay, but I've made peace with the power imbalance because the fuckwit always comes home to me. I'm the one the fuckwit really loves. This is all the same old reconciliation industrial complex that it's a kind of a retread of cheating makes a marriage stronger. Polyamory also assumes that the relationship stays intact. No, it's already broken. It's already broken. There's already a chasm there. It's not, the relationship isn't intact. Period. Like, there's no negotiation there. The relationship is not intact if you are going to engage in polyamory, because there's no relationship there. Yeah, again, like I said, you either don't care or you're being coerced subtly to stay in the relationship. Lastly, what it also does is it sends a message that cheating isn't a big deal. I've actually heard people in my field, people who provide therapy services to individuals in a therapeutic setting, that the reaction to non-disclosed, non-monogamous relationships or cheating is the problem. Oh, well, you're the problem because of how you're reacting to it. You need to really examine your childhood wounds. And again, in a lot of cases, in some cases, yes, it is about the sex or about the romance. But from my view and from the view of my colleagues, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the disrespect that comes with polyamory. So if you hear this term, know that it's a total bullshit term that is being made up so that people can apply a pretty flowery word to a really horrible thing, which is a lack of trust, a coercion into a relationship that has already died, and a way to make cheating palatable. Think of the examples that I used. Okay. Couples can be not monogamous if they bring certain kinds of compatibilities to the relationship, not sexual ones. Okay. If they bring compatibilities to the relationship, you wouldn't have to engage in polyamory to begin with, because you could already talk about what your sexual needs are, how you can share with each other, and how you can negotiate them and experience them in a way that is healthy to the relationship. Now, I understand there are some people that are strict monogamists, and they're like, well, no, any kind of extradyadic sexual relationship is it's a problem. I have a different view on that. And I've studied a lot of this. Some people are naturally monogamous. Some people aren't. We're a very diverse species. Humans are very diverse. What we want to be able to do is find a partner we're compatible with around a lot of things. We don't have to be, identical, but on a lot of things, and that we can have sexual discussions about our kinks, our relationship style, and if there's a lack of compatibility there, then you can look at that person and say, you know what, that is not something that I'm going to be able to deal with. It's just not something I want in my relationship. There's a lack of compatibility there. We need to move on from each other. No harm, no foul. Not mad. Just, that's just not going to work. That's just not going to work. And I've said this time and time again on this channel, that couples are not having the hard conversations in the beginning, and then they're looking at each other 10 years later and barely know each other. And if polyamory is something that that's a part of their relationship, it's not really a relationship at all. It's just not, because there's a huge chasm between the two. And I'll die on that hill. I will die on that hill. So anyway, this was a nice break from the hard work that I've been doing on the book. I'm actually I can't believe I'm at this point. I will have most likely the formatted final version of the book by next week, and I'm kind of stunned, because I just languished for years in trying to figure out what I would write about next. And well, you'll find, when you pick up the book, you'll understand what the impetus was for the book, and the kind of where that motivation came from. I'm going to take longer writing the next volume, simply because it requires a lot more research than this one took over a year, but the next one I think I'm going to take a couple of years, just because it was a lot. And then, of course, please do check out the Erotic Heritage Museum's website at eroticmuseumvegas.com. We have our huge event on August 31st. It has actually, since I've done my last podcast, it has expanded to, of course, we have the Forbidden Gallery that's opening with Curb Crawler Ghosts art. I'm sorry, backwards. That's the Blacklist Gallery. So Curb Crawler Ghosts art is going to be in the Blacklist Gallery. Then, of course, we have the death metal concert that night. But we also have all kinds of other stuff that has now been added. So the Louis and Romulo Royo exhibit is now being moved and will have its own gallery called the Royo Gallery, which is going to be featuring new tracks from Mitchell Johnson's Murder of Fireflies electronica project. We also have the Forbidden Gallery. That's a two-story gallery that's going to feature the most forbidden artifacts, artwork, audio, visual that Las Vegas has ever seen. We're working with we're working with some other museums, with some incredibly talented artists. And then of course I'm going to have my book signing that night as well. Fingers crossed if the printer gets me the copies back in time. And it's just turning into like, well, then we just found out that we are going to be getting this enormous collection that documents the history of the exotic dancer and of gentlemen's clubs in the United States. So that's changing as well. It's just I'd say probably 3/4 of the museum is changing. Like by the end of August. The work has just been intense. And of course, I'm trying to finish this book too. So anyway, so that's my rant for the day. I will put the articles from Tracy Shorn and Dr. Kate Lister in the description. This is the only, I'm not going to talk anymore about this term or, it's getting to the point where it's so ridiculous that like every time I hear about new terms to describe shitty behavior, in order to justify it, my head spins and my brain catches fire and I run away screaming because it's ludicrous. It's just absolutely, it's just ludicrous. So with that, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Sex Nerd Podcast, Just a Tip with Dr. Vic, and I will see you on August 31st at the Erotic Heritage Museum for the Blacklist exhibition, freak show, and concert.